on kakufm.org, on Facebook Live at KAKU 88.5 FM, and locally on your car radios at 88.5 FM. I'm delighted to have Richard Leversee back on the show. He's a friend of mine by now. We've been down quite a bit of a road together, and this is part 2 of Richard's Dying Out Loud. Welcome to the show, Richard. Let's see if I can hear you. Hold on. Go ahead. Can I hear you? Speak up. Can you hear me?
Aloha, buddy.
Okay, perfect.
Aloha.
Aloha, Richard. And glad to have you back. And it's been 2 weeks since you were last on our part 1 of Dying Out Loud. And we introduced how you got to the point of feeling that you are dying of a broken heart. And I think you mentioned to me that now you've gone to get a medical opinion about what's going on. So I'm looking forward to hearing where we are today.
Yeah, that was my cat, Oscar, by the way, in the background, dying of a broken heart. So let's see. I just went to the doctor, which is the first doctor I've been to since 2010.
What kind of doctor did you go to?
She's a GP internist, you know. She's been involved with hospice in San Luis Obispo, but you know, I just went for a GP appointment. And I left her about 2 hours ago, so it's really fresh. And like I said, first time I've been to a doctor in a long time.
How long?
And 2010.
That's a long time. This is 2018. You haven't seen a Western medical doctor since 2010?
0.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Right. So my intention going to see this doctor today, I had several intentions. One intention was to get a hospice referral because I believe that I'm dying and I want to have the support of hospice that would increase my comfort level and also my quality of life, to kind of go hand in hand for the full extent of my dying period. You know, I don't want to wait to the last minute and then all of a sudden try to bring in hospice because I was, you know, afraid of what hospice meant, and then, you know, have a diminished quality at the end of my life and more discomfort. So that was one of my intentions, is to get a hospice referral from her. And then also, I wanted to explore with her what's actually going on with me, you know, have her give me an exam, and let me be the beneficiary of her experience and her wisdom and her take on what's going on physiologically, which would perhaps inform my guiding my dying process. You know, so more information would mean that potentially I might choose different strategies or different forms of comfort care, you know, especially with pharmaceuticals.
I see. Okay, well, we want to know, give us the doctor report.
So the doctor report is, quote unquote, you have a strong heart. I can't, this is the doctor speaking, I'm quoting her. You know, I can't give you, I can't in good faith give you a hospice referral because I don't think that you will die in the next 6 months.
And did you take some heart tests?
Yes, not diagnostic tests, but you know, she listened to my heart for quite a while and my lungs. And based on that, and then based on the look of the quality of my skin, et cetera, she said, I don't think you're dying right now.
Yeah, and what did you do with that? I mean, you've already been on the show affirming and testifying that you're dying of a broken heart. Did you bring up the broken heart syndrome? Yeah.
Say that again.
Did you've already attested to the your truth that you're dying of a broken heart and have been ever since your wife died? Did you bring up the prognosis, the medically established prognosis that there is such a thing as broken heart syndrome?
Yes, and she is familiar with that, and she's worked with patients of hers who have had symptoms of broken heart syndrome. And that was a key question that I had for her, because otherwise it's based on speculation, it's not based on experience. So, yeah, that's what she believes.
And what did she say about the other symptoms of that you've also said that you're experiencing symptoms of congestive heart failure, swelling, edema, and how did that fit into what she saw?
She agreed that I have weight gain, but she doesn't feel like it's water gain, water weight. So she said, you're obese, all the symptoms that you have could be chalked up to just flat out obesity. And, she didn't feel like there was much of a strong indication that I was dying of congestive heart failure or broken heart syndrome.
And is that because you lay around on the couch and eat chips and drink beer and don't go out at all? You don't walk your cat, or what's that?
Yeah, somewhat, yes, yeah. It's because of lack of physical activity and poor dietary habits.
So I want
my intention.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Death by corn chips. Is that like I wasn't being serious about the couch thing, but apparently I hit on something, because what I heard you say was the doctor doesn't think that extra weight is water weight, that it's a combination of diet and lack of, let's say, exercise. So is that in fact true?
That's what she believes, and I think it's more complex than that.
Good. Yeah, say more.
So, one of the questions I asked her early in our appointment was, are you familiar with, stress-induced cardiomyopathy, which is, broken heart syndrome? She said yes, and she had worked with patients with that, and, she's very familiar with congestive heart failure. And she also acknowledged the research that I did said that the broken heart syndrome was really accepted within the last 20 years. And she said, yeah, it's more like the last 10 years. So what I believe is that our collective medical understanding of how we get from the spiritual sorrow and heartbreak to physiological dysfunction of the heart is something that the medical community has only been really embracing and working with for the past 10 years or so, according to her. according to my research, it might be closer to 20, but whatever, it's very recent. And so I think there is so much that happens between when somebody first experiences a breaking of their heart, psycho-emotional, spiritually, and then has a heart that has a pathology that, you know, is a physiological broken heart. There's so much that happens in between there. And I think that's where I am.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
You know, so I actually really respect her, which I don't mean to sound smart, but, you know, obviously if I haven't been to a doctor since 2010, I don't put a lot of, you know, I don't align with Western medical ideology and perspective. But I actually respect her and honor that, you know, there's something there in her opinion. She's been doing it for a long time. She is, you know, one of her signature traits of her practice is how she works with people end of life issues. She used to sit on the board of directors at Slow.
On the board of directors of what?
Of Hospice San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
And she also spearheaded a committee at the hospital to improve end of life care. So, you know, she's sympathetic to that realm. She's not your normal doctor.
So you received all of this information about 2 hours ago. One, did she make any suggestions to you? And two, where have you gone in the last 2 hours with that information?
About 3 revolutions around the Milky Way. That's what I found with it.
Only 3?
Well, you know, I'll just share sort of stream of consciousness and butt in here anytime, please.
Okay.
Because I've had so many thoughts and feelings about it. One thing that came up is, you know, it's in a kind of a karmic way or dharmic way. It's an opportunity for me to deepen into my true belief based on my, pardon the pun here, but my heart compass. You know, as opposed to listening to the voices in my life and setting my course and my beliefs based on, you know, external voices. I mean, I know I'm dying of a broken heart. Whether Western medicine understands the dynamics of that or has a way to block that, or, you know, a way to deal with that, it doesn't matter to me. It's that here's a Western medicine doctor who I respect, who has this opinion that, hey, you aren't dying of a broken heart. It's not right now. And, you know, you may live for quite a while longer, which is not my intention. So the opportunity is there for me to take that in, consider it, add it to the database, and then deepen into my heart compass and figure out what's really going on.
I'm wondering why we hear a little noise in the background. Is that your cat?
That's awesome.
Does your cat want to get on this interview with us, or what
Absolutely.
do you think? What do you think Oscar's got to say about it?
I think Oscar and I are walking each other home. He's 19 years old.
Wow.
And we didn't have any children, so he is our child. And, you know, he's coming to the end of his living time, and so am I. So that's what I think he has to say about it.
So I want to recap in case people have missed part 1. Say a little bit about how you got here in a nutshell.
The skinny version is that my wife, Carrie, died about a little over a year ago, just before Thanksgiving last year. And she died out loud. She was an advocate for shifting and evolving the way we as people, at least in this culture, embrace our mortality and and how we die, how we treat our dead, and all of that. She was very, very involved with all of that on many, many levels. So she died a little over a year ago. Then I was in, and still am in, profound grief. This year, my health has been declining and declining and declining to the point where I'm no longer working. I'm a massage therapist, and I believe I'm dying. So I am living into my dying, and I'm dying out loud.
And wanting to die.
Correct. There's more of me that wants to be with her in the next dimension than wants to be here without her. So, it's not like I think life sucks and it's terrible and horrible and I just want to be, with her as a, sort of spiritual Band-Aid to, to salve, to put on my grief. That's not it. I'm also an advocate for a different way of dying, and I believe that we can die in this beautiful, uplifting, inspirational, love-based, blossoming way, this graceful, beautiful way. And so that's what I'm doing, which includes dying out loud.
Thank you. So what I heard you say was your doctor said you've got a strong heart. That's not water weight. That's just poor diet and lack of exercise. She said you were obese. Do you have any interest in changing the course of that particular direction of where you're heading with obesity and little exercise and poor diet? Do you haven't gotten that information at this point, 2 hours after your exam? Do you feel any interest in, I could turn this around if I wanted to?
No.
Zero.
No. I like I said, there's more of me that wants to be with her in the next minute. So by improving my health habits and becoming healthier, I would extend my life, and that's moving the opposite direction of my intention.
So then some might wonder, there are many obese. In fact, I think the obesest, if there's such a word, a nation in the world. And you can be obese and not exercise and not eat well for years. So some people would wonder, does that cause you to consider hastening this, what could be, years of slowly declining through obesity?
Yes, it does prompt me to consider what I can do to hasten that, because as you very eloquently just said, and we talked about with the doctor 2 hours ago, dying from obesity can be a very slow suffer fest to the end. And I certainly don't want to do that, either the suffering or the slow part. So she asked me the same thing. She said, so you're kind of a candidate for suicide. How do you feel about that? And I thought, I have no desire. It doesn't come up on my radar. And it certainly didn't come up on my radar before today, because, I completely believe that I'm dying, and that's going to happen soon. So, I don't need to do anything that's going to cause other people pain on my way out. Plus,
go ahead.
messy.
Oh, I
It's
had
messy.
the sense, messy. Yeah, I had the sense to actually open the phone lines if anyone has a question for you, Richard. If somebody's listening out there and following this story, the number here, 808-873-3435, if you want to ask Richard a question. So then where are we now, Richard, today, 2 hours or 3 hours later from your medical exam?
Well, like I said, I'm kind of orbiting around the Milky Way, you know, with all these different thoughts and considerations.
What are some of those?
Well, you know, like I shared, it's an opportunity for me to deepen into, you know, a deep listening to what's really going on with me, rather than paying attention to external voices. And I think external voices are good, you know, it's information, but I believe that my inner position knows way more than all the positions on the planet. You know, so that, you know, it's a stilling down and a deepening of the listening. What else?
Was there some, I'm guessing there could have been some disappointment that you didn't get a more favorable, in your case anyway, favorable diagnosis.
Absolutely. I'm disappointed. Does that disappointment lead to depression that leads to me deciding to, you know, to take my life? No. Every molecule in my being says that what I need to do is deepen into my own internal knowing about what's going on. You know, because I asked the doctor, well, people who die of broken heart syndrome, a lot of them are really healthy. You know, you could say that their heart was healthy, or their, you know, their lungs, their immune system, everything was physiologically healthy. And yet when their beloved died, they, you know, that connection between spirit and physiology, you know, something in there happened to create a physiology that overcame the body's will to live. And I think that's where I'm at. So it was, you know, you can imagine it was, I feel, proud isn't the right word, but I feel good that I am open-minded enough to go engage with Western medicine and take that in with an open mind and ponder it and chew on it and consider it and take what wisdom I find from it. And I'm also not, I'm a protester against being a product of my culture. And the culture says, you know, the doctors are God, and, you know, what they say is absolute, and, you know, I don't have to make that choice.
So then in my understanding from what you said, excuse me, despite what I heard you say, your doctor told you that in fact you're not dying, you have a great heart, you're not experiencing the effects of congestive heart failure, that's not water weight, that's just obesity. Clearly the message from your doctor is that you're not dying and you could do something about getting healthier. And so the other side of that is, I heard you say you still experience yourself as dying of a broken heart. Is that true?
Absolutely. And you know, I'm not sure in our culture we have a way to hold those two things simultaneously without confusion.
Right, exactly. Certainly I haven't come across it myself. So let's continue on. Actually, you know what? This might be a good little break point. I'll play something, and then we'll come back and see where we want to go in this remaining time together. I'm Bodhi B. This is Death Tracks. This is KAKU 88.5 FM, Maui's community-sponsored, listener-supported radio station, Death Tracks on Bodhi B. Alan Watts. Can you hear me, Richard?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hold on. Can you hear me, Richard?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're off the radio now, but I'm talking to you. Where you think about, like, we've got like almost a half an hour, you could consider where you want to take the conversation. You don't need to tell me. You don't need to tell me right now. We'll just come back on the show, and you can. You've gathered your thoughts a little bit in terms of what you'd like to explore with us. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
I think it's really cool that you're wearing a shirt.
Yeah. Right.
See through your ribcage into your heart.
This is my three-piece suit, man.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Richard, I think what I'd like to do is go to the bathroom and take a pee. So when I hand it to you, you talk for a while until you see my face again, and I'll return here, right? You good with that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just peeing, right? Tell me when to go.
That was Alan Watts. I'm Bodhi B. This is Death Tracks and KEKU 88.5 FM, streaming live on kekufm.org. I'm here with Richard Leversee in part 2 of our series, Dying Out Loud. Richard asked to chronicle his ongoing process, really, of dying of a broken heart, which has been going on since his wife died a little more than a year ago. So glad to keep going with you, Richard. Please, let's see where your process is at now. Given that today you received news from a medical doctor that in fact you've got a good heart, your obesity is caused not by water but by your lifestyle or lack thereof, and you're, I'm sure, cogitating and digesting that information. Because I'm sure you wanted the doctor to say, yep, you're dying all right, I'll put you on hospice. So let's see where you want to go with that, given that this is a just home from seeing the doctor.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go stream of consciousness. I have no script notes, and Bodhi and I didn't talk about this before. And like Bodhi mentioned, I just came back from the doctor a couple hours ago. And, you know, it really calls into question the relationship between our perception and quote unquote reality. You know, the doctor said, no, you're not, you know, from my experience, I could be wrong, but from my experience, it does not look like you're dying of a broken heart. Now, I could, with the perception that the doctor knows more than I do, or what the doctor knows is more valuable than what I know, pardon the pun, but in my heart, then I could perceive that the doctor's evaluation was reality. Or I can trust my perception and, you know, do my due diligence with my perception and trust that my knowing is really reality, at least for me. So
I had to step away. I had to step away for a few moments, and while I was away, I was thinking about how this is a very unique story, because everybody else I've heard that goes to the doctor wants the doctor to say you're fine, and
right.
and you're not dying, and you don't have cancer, and you'll just be fine. You got a bellyache or whatever it is, and you went to the doctor and were disappointed to hear that you were fine.
Yeah, disappointed, but more surprised. You know, I guess because I know I'm dying of a broken heart, so surprised in the sense that, well, you know, why isn't she concurring with that? So, you know, I mean, I asked her some questions. Well, wait a minute, you know, what about these symptoms and these symptoms, and you know, what about all the couples, you know, where one of the partners dies and the other one dies, you know, within the next year. You know, how do you account for that? Because, you know, prior to that, the surviving partner was quote unquote healthy. You know, clearly there's something going on with the emotional, spiritual broken heartedness that can manifest the end of one's life. I mean, just looking at the many examples of that, including President Bush, you know, 7 months later. But I have to admit that despite what I just said about perception and reality, I was hoping that the doctor would confirm my knowing. And it's an opportunity for me to realize that that doesn't undermine my knowing. You know, my knowing is still my knowing. And I'm not saying that in a rigid, denial, sort of defiant way. You know, it's the doctor's opinion. It's called a medical practice, not a medical perfect.
I mention that all the time. It's practice, and of course sometimes that's not the good news, that they're still practicing, especially on us.
Yeah.
No thoughts of heck, I'm not dying. But you know, you keep basically confirming that you're more drawn to being there than being here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And some would go ahead.
it doesn't help that in the news in the last couple of days, there's, our government wanting to get rid of, water quality regulations, and, that there's this report on climate change that says, if we don't do a rapid, immediate turnaround, that in the next 12 years, we're screwed. That isn't why I want to leave. And I do find lots and lots of beauty and meaning in this world. And that blatant disregard for humanity doesn't help.
So that's kind of opening up another can of many people are feeling that our future is in question. Maybe not the future of the world, but certainly the future of humans being able to survive on a planet that we're pretty much poisoned, and now have clearly, in my view, affected the climate of the world, where storms and hurricanes and fires and flooding are becoming more and more extreme and more often. So you're saying that's not the cause of your dying, but it certainly, it doesn't support you. It doesn't give you a positive outlook for a good reason to stick around. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, pretty much. I can always see Eden here, and the direction we're headed as human beings is, thinning out Eden here on the planet. I actually believe we're in a sixth mass extinction. So
Oftentimes when people, especially, I've met some people who are dying and wanted to know why they weren't dead already. Why did this keep going on and on and on? And it's a big question, and I've heard it a number of times now. Oftentimes I feel that if you're still here, you're supposed to be here. I don't know that that's always true, but I wonder if you're still needed on this side, and maybe that's not even a big enough reason to stay here. But maybe it's one of the contributing storylines that's playing out. So then I wonder whether you're open to changing your mind about this. Maybe you're needed, and maybe that's a big enough factor to play into the possibility that you could change your mind.
Yeah, I get you. Without meaning to sound arrogant, damn right I'm needed. Anyone who commits their life to being authentic and kind and wanting to help others, and wanting to spread love in the world and make choices not against fear but pro-love, of course they're needed. We're all needed in that way. And I'm very much of a contributor while I'm here, regardless of whether I'm dying or not. And so, what you said is, if you're still here, maybe you're needed, or if you're still here, maybe there's some reason for you to still be here. I don't know if there's some strategic, God-based, strategic reason why I'm still here. I just know that I am still here, and while I'm here, I'm going to be an authentic, normal, healthy human spirit while I'm here, and I'm doing that full on. I'm doing that more consistently and presently now, because maybe not because I know I'm dying, but in my knowing that I'm dying, than I ever have in my life. I'm more alive now. I'm enlivened.
So you weren't depressed by the medical prognosis?
Yeah, there was part of me that went, you know, darn, I wanted the doctor to say, yeah, it doesn't look good. Here's your hospice referral. Can I write you, a note to the EMT so you can get a handicap placard, and here's a script for oxygen, and bless you, my son. I would have loved that. And because that didn't happen, there are opportunities for all of us here. I just happen to be in the front row.
So I'm not sure whether I did hear you answer the question of whether you have some openness towards maybe you're not supposed to be dying right now.
Maybe. The whole supposed to thing is a trigger for me because, the truth is I don't know. I don't know if there's, some spirit creator up there, moving the chess pieces on the board and there's a plan or not. I do know that I am here, and I'm going to live full out while I'm here. And am I open-minded? Here's the question, right? Am I open-minded to sticking around? No. Well, it's not a hard and fast no. It's in this moment, no. What happened today doesn't change how I feel. However, I do feel strongly compelled to, deepen into that heart compass and that inner knowing of what's really going on. And in that listening, I think I will, that's where the answer comes from to your question. Am I open-minded to sticking around and living on in this world or not? I don't know.
Fair enough. That's a good answer. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, there's, this whole dying business brings up the issue of control and surrender, right?
Certainly does.
I want to be with Carrie. So in that sense, I want to control my soul's path, right?
That's right. I hear that.
But if I hold on too much to control and I believe that the desire to control comes from fear, from the fear of not being in control. And the truth is, for me, I don't think my soul is in total control. And there's a beauty and serenity and a peace and a grace to surrendering and being passionately engaged in the workings of my life and my past at the same time. It's a dance between control and surrender.
Say a little more about that, because that's exactly it. Control, surrender.
Well, I'm going to say my ego self went to the doctors today going, yes, here's my path. I want to be with Carrie, so I'm dying and I need a hospice referral, so I need to go to this doctor, and she's going to confirm my belief that my heart is physiologically dying, and that didn't happen. So if I were rigidly attached to the control of that, it would have been devastating. And yeah, it was disappointing. And I noticed that, okay, here's an opportunity to surrender. There's something more here. Did that get to it?
I think you touched it about as well as can be articulated. And so I wonder if there's more to say in this segment. Like what do you want? Let's say out of this particular segment, part two, today, December the 11th, what would you like listeners to take away from this part of the story?
I guess the most fascinating thing, well, one of the most fascinating things to me, and what I would, the seed I would throw out there into listener land, to see if, that fascination germinated in their experience, is the whole concept of how our spirit, how our soul, how our spirit animates into our physical body, and the seamless, uncompartmentalized integration of that. So what I mean by that is, I totally believe that my spirit, wants to be with Carrie, and so I will end up manifesting that. In our evidence-based analytical world, we compartmentalize those two things. There's your metaphorical, broken heart, and then there's your physiological broken heart, and those two things are actually far away from each other. But I think it's all one. I think what's going on with our spirit is going on with our physical body. And so, when the doctor says, "Oh, you have a healthy heart, and it'll last for another, who knows, 10 years," and she, in her defense, not defense, but to her credit, she did say, "Hey, I could be totally wrong. It's just my opinion based on my experience." I just think there's this, because we don't know, it has a magical quality to it, and I think we people should, let me rephrase that. I think we people have this opportunity to approach that unknown mechanism, dynamic, that is the bridge between what's going on with our spirit and what ends up manifesting at the physiological level. I think we have an opportunity, if we keep an open mind, to look at that and taste that and smell that and hear that, and just be with that. And so much would be revealed, but I think a lot of times, it's more like, okay, I have this theory, I'm going to go out and prove it, rather than looking at it with a completely open mind, which is, I think, the actual heart definition of the scientific method. Scientific method, you don't come in with a presupposed theory and then go to try to prove it. And a lot of people do. But to me, a true scientific exploration of something is completely open-minded and devoid of theories. And that's where we get to perceive, that magical realm that's a little bit elusive.
So, yes, and now I guess quantum science has, or maybe even as far back as Einstein, proved that your preconceptions in any scientific experiment affect the outcome of the scientific experiment. So, is your scientific experiment, I want to die, and that's going to manifest because my consciousness is saying I want to die? That everybody around the table inside you, all the voices inside of you have gathered around together and had tea together, and you've gotten them all on the same message that we want to die. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
And that in spite of quite the opposite prognosis today from the doctor, that's the track that you're on. I really want to die, and that's going to happen, regardless of my health.
Yes. However, it's tricky, this dance, because it would be easy to get really rigid and be a slave to the desire to control that.
Sounds like control.
Yes, you're right. It does sound like control. So yes, it is my desire to, be with Carrie in the next dimension. And yes, I believe that being clear about that, I will end up manifesting that. And,
well, of course, we're all going to manifest that. The question is whether, you're on the slow train or the express train.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm conscientious of the gravitational pull of control.
So in the what you call gravitational pull of control, do you see yourself dead within a year?
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm Bodhi B. This is Death Tracks. We've been speaking with Richard Leversee in California on our Zoom meeting, where I get to look at Richard. He gets to look at me, and so we're really talking to each other. It feels like he's right here. I get to see all of his expressions and where he catches his breath and what's a little more difficult and challenging, and even his eyes. So how you read people, and so much communication happens in the expressions between the words. Richard Leversee is dying out loud of a broken heart. He wanted to chronicle and record this for the benefit of people learning about not only dying out loud, but dying well. And in his case, dying of a broken heart after the death of his beautiful wife, Carrie Leversee, who also died very much out loud and included her community in her dying of, I believe, brain cancer. And she called our show a couple of times to speak about her process, very close to before she did die. So again, Richard Leversee, this has been part 2 of our conversation. The part 2 outstanding moments in this conversation is that Richard just came from a doctor to see if he could get a hospice recommendation in order to actually get support from hospice in his dying process. His doctor came back to Richard with your heart's really strong, you are not dying, and what you thought was edema as a result of heart congestion, congestive heart failure, is in fact just obesity caused by probably poor diet and lack of exercise. And today we've been exploring with Richard what's basically how he's moving, having just received that prognosis and diagnosis, really. So any closing words, Richard, about where we are today?
I guess the last thing I would say, Bodhi, is that, Stephen Levine's book and his work, 1 year to live, that's how I've been living. In fact, it hasn't even been, I've been living like I only have, maybe a month or 3 left. And
I'm just seeing now we have about a minute here before we're going to get taken away here.
It's an amazing life, and it's an amazing state of awareness to be in. And if there's any way to artificially create even a little bit of that in your life, the appreciation of this precious life, then
beautiful.
That is definitely worth living for.
Beautiful. We got to go. Thank you so much, Richard. I'm Bodhi B. This is Death Tracks on KEKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. That's been beautiful, Richard. And, we'll talk soon.